This series is very, very important to both of us.
Yeah.
I love this series this is one of my favorite movie series.
Really?
Just
I didn't
straight up.
know you liked it this much.
Yeah, and rewatching them is just cementing how much I love these movies.
You know what? I'm glad you said that because rewatching these, I remembered. We'll talk about this, but Saw one of my favorite movies of all time.
Sure.
It's the answer to if you could watch any movie for the first time again. To me, it's the original Saw, and
Interesting.
and the story behind that I can get into in a second here. But I'm glad you said that because I Saw 2. I remember pretty well. Saw 3. I was like, I kind of vaguely remember. Saw 4. I'm like, I could not tell you anything that happens in Saw 4. I'm like, these movies are pretty good.
Yeah.
They're not like cinematic masterpieces, but they're like very entertaining.
I'll say right off the bat, I'm not, even though I know Jimmy never does, I usually give ratings. I'm not going to rate any of these because these movies are so just like what they are. They're very like, you're getting probably what you expect out of them. So I'm kind of judging them more on that. And I pretty much like all of them for like more or less. Like some of them not as much, but yeah, it would be kind of pointless for me to try to rate them. I'll rank them. That's what I'll do.
Okay,
I'll rank.
that's what we can do once we see Saw 10.
Yeah.
Saw X.
Yeah.
It's gonna knock our Saw X off.
But yeah, Saw 1, directed by James Wan, written by him and Lee Winnell.
Yes.
And started a whole franchise. Do we have like I guess if we're doing spoilers, we don't really need to give a synopsis.
So when we're going to talk about these movies, what we like about them, and we're also talking about there's some just like really interesting stuff behind the scenes, like the making of that I think is worth sharing as well. So we'll talk about some of those. I have a bunch of notes down.
I have notes for 3 and 4. I started notes on 2 and I just forgot to just keep writing notes for it. So first 2 you'll probably have to lead notes on, but Saw 1.
Yes, Saw 1.
Which is, even though I like at least one of the later ones more, this is probably the best one.
Do you like Saw 6?
I like Saw 6.
I see.
more.
I don't remember Saw 6.
I guess we'll see when I rewatch it, but from what I remember, I do like Saw 6 more. And it's just it's about what you like in these movies ultimately, and Saw 6 is like the perfect encapsulation of what I like about Saw.
Well, that doesn't have Carrie Elwes.
That's true.
So.
It doesn't have Carrie Elwes.
My gosh, Carrie Elwes in this movie is hilarious.
It is very good.
The acting in this movie is horrible,
It's
and that's
so bad.
one of the things that makes it just fantastic.
I would best describe this movie. This movie it's a perfect example of it's like something that's greater than the sum of its parts. Because I think there's a lot of things in this that are just bad,
Like
but
objectively terrible.
Yeah, but it like comes together to make something pretty awesome.
Holden, here's a fact for you. So, everything that happens first off, James Wan, Lee Winnell were like roommates in film school together, something like that, in Australia. They're buddies, and they want to make a movie together.
Yes.
And they were inspired like the Blair Witch Project and something else to finance their own movie. And they're like, well, we don't have any money. So what's a movie we can make without any money? They're like, okay, something in one room. They're like, maybe we like they're all in an elevator, and there's like the footage from the elevator, which is that a Shyamalan movie or something? There's like
Devil.
Yeah. But then they're like, okay, how about a room? All right. And James Wan's like, okay, it's a room with a dead guy in the middle and 2 people chained to opposite sides of the room, and they don't know why they're there. Yeah. And Lee Winnell's like, that's stupid, James Wan, you idiot. And they thought about it. He's like, well, maybe this works. And he wrote down like Saw in the lettering, and then he like sat down and wrote this movie or the premise of it, and they came up with the Jigsaw a little bit later. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, some of the things. So like they shot this movie. The bathroom stuff was all shot in 6 days. Every scene in the bathroom, like the majority of the movie was shot in 6 days,
which is crazy, but
incredible.
It kind of makes sense. I mean, like obviously they're chained to one location, so it makes sense that they don't have to do a lot of moving around with the sets or anything. But that is still, it's a lot of the movie that they just hashed out.
And they shot it all chronologically too, the stuff in the bathroom, which is uncommon, just because like for the sake of continuity. They're like, we don't want the continuity to be messed up, so they just shot it in order, keep everything in line.
Yeah.
I love all every time they throw something to the other side of the room.
Yeah, it's just the shot reverse shot. You never actually see it like fly or anything.
And it's always just a terrible throw.
Yeah, it's awkward.
Except
like,
the one time they throw the tape player.
it doesn't break.
Just catches it and right to the part that they gotta listen to, and they rewind it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the continuity. These are on Amazon Prime right now.
Yes.
Is that how you watch them?
That's how I watch them.
Okay. And I was watching it on my laptop at most of these. And so I was like looking at like the goofs and stuff like as they were popping up. I forgot to write down most of them, but I was just seeing all the continuity errors, and then I was noticing them in the movie. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I can't unsee this.
Yeah.
It's nothing like major or anything, but it's just kind of, makes sense for a movie of this budget.
Well, I think so. Yeah, it's made for like $1 million. Well, again, they also, another interesting part of this is they made a short film.
Yes.
Which is based on the reverse bear trap scene, and which Lee Winnell plays the Amanda. I think his name's like David, the original script or something. He plays that character who's a male in the short film, which I believe is just on YouTube. You can find it. Just like
I think I watched it a long
film.
time ago. I don't really.
It's very similar. Well, they like I think James Wan's like, we like the short film better. Like we had to do the actual one in like a few hours or something, and they had like several days to record the short film. So they like made that for like $5,000. Billy the Puppet was made by James Wan, paper mache, and he like assumed they were gonna make a new one for like the movie, and they're like, no, you just use the one use that one. He's like, oh, okay. They did eventually make a new one, I think for Saw 2 or 3 or something like that.
Billy the Puppet terrified me as a kid.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it is a creepy design. So like even in the later movies when it becomes a bit sillier, like it is still a creepy design. And if you don't know anything about these movies, it is freaky. Yeah, the laugh is iconic. But yeah, when I was a kid, like I remember, I think it was the DVD copy of Saw 2 had his face on it. I just like every time I saw it in the store, I was terrified.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say like I remember like YouTube. I think it was Saw 4 was just when just the banner ads all over YouTube, and just like going on the family computer, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary.
Yeah,
in like 2007, whenever that was. For whatever reason, that I think it was Saw 4 when I really remember seeing Billy the Puppet.
It was the midst of me just being terrified of dolls. So I probably when I saw that, I probably assumed the movie was about like a haunted doll or something.
It's okay, Holden. He's an action figure. Yeah. So and eventually Lionsgate picked it up, and the deal was like James Wan and Lee Winnell. Good for them. They're like, you can have the movie, except Lee Winnell's going to be a star in it, and James Wan gets to direct it. And that was like their deal. And some people were like, no, you're crazy. You don't have any track record. And Lionsgate was like, sure, you can have creative control and do it, which good on them. Lee Winnell, probably a better actor than a writer, or better writer than an actor. Sorry, I had that other way around.
Definitely. Yeah, his performance in this is hilarious, but the dialogue is also hilarious. So it's like I don't know, the dialogue's not really doing him any favors, to be fair.
Although, man, Carrie Elwes might outshine him for overacting though.
Oh yeah. Carrie Elwes is overacting, and technically probably a better performance if I were to have to compare them, but it is still hilarious.
Both
how
are
hard
hilarious.
he goes.
And I think it's just a testament to the script that even though the movie is just downright silly at times, like you are very much like engrossed in this mystery and the suspense of it and the thrill of it, and it's like and all these silly stuff like alleviate or kind of just bring up the mood, lighten the mood a little bit, but they didn't ever like completely break that immersion for me.
Yeah.
Even though it is just goofy, campy stuff. But yeah, no, one of the things I really like about the Saw movies is that all the traps are practical. Like they're like, which I kind of just took for granted until researching it more. I'm like, oh no, this is like very clever. And they're like
where all the budget goes.
Honestly, it's like the set designer and the production designer does a fantastic job, and like they are like like they work. Like they said, like if the machine is supposed to rip your scalp off, like it will be capable of that. Like so, and then they make the safety precautions and stuff. But the reverse bear trap has got to be the most iconic.
Yeah.
Saw trap, just that huge thing, and then the demonstration. Pretty cool. But yeah, I got a few lines in here that I wrote down when Carrie Elwes is like grabs his daughter's feet to play the this little piggy or whatever with her toes. He's like, "Oh, what a big tootsie!"
Very good.
When Lee Wendell Adam reaches into the toilet and he's like, "You find anything in there? No solids." Oh, and then they have the cigarettes. Give me that sweet cancer.
That's a classic. I say that one sometimes. I think that's funny.
Yeah, and then I didn't remember this line, but Carrie Elwes is like, "What else have you been telling me?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't tell you that my last girlfriend, who was a feminist vegan punk, broke up with me because she thought I was too angry." I'm like, that was pretty quick, Adam.
My favorite line is "My name is very effing confused." What's yours? That might be my favorite line, just at the beginning.
Oh man. Yeah, but I love this movie, and watching it for the first time, the whole concept of the Jigsaw killer, someone who's righteous in their own mind, and you can see how someone who's a lunatic could justify this, and just the creativity of the traps and kind of like this symmetry of this person's flaw or underappreciation for something, and then kind of highlighting that, and if you do survive, you are theoretically grateful for living now, and you can be more satisfied in your life. And it's like, oh, Jigsaw sees himself as the hero. Pretty interesting concept. I don't think all the traps work to that extent throughout the series, but the ones that do, I think, are especially noteworthy, and we can highlight along the way.
Well, yeah, and the traps in this one, while not as elaborate as the later ones, they still are quite good. I mean, the barbed wire one is pretty hard to watch. Like that kind of hurts.
From an editing standpoint as well. But
yeah,
and I'll have to talk about that in a second. Interesting thing here, and I did not know this. The guy who is the guy in the barbed wire, that victim, was their original choice to play Jigsaw.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he didn't do it because he didn't feel like... I mean, the first movie, Jigsaw literally just lays on the ground until the end, pretty much, other than when he's in his lair. So and that's why he turned it down. Okay. Wow, could you imagine? And then James Wan sought out Tobin Bell simply because he liked his voice.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did not know that either until doing some research. Otherwise, the editing, which we got to talk about. The reason why it is edited so crazily is because they literally did not have the footage they needed to bridge the gaps. Like they did not have usable takes for something, so they literally just like use this stuff to bridge the gaps.
That, you know what, that kind of makes sense because, like, I mean, and this even happens later on in the series too. I feel like especially in 4 out of the ones we're going to be talking about, but like when there's all the rapid cuts and everything, which is very iconic part of the editing of this series. Like there are obviously just like weird like frames in there that are taken from alternate takes of like this of the shot or whatever. So that makes sense. But when they say that,
they're like everybody was like, "Oh wow, this is so stylistic and cool." They're like, "Yeah, that's what it is, stylistic and cool, not just what we had to do."
I mean, it does make. I mean, even if it was entirely just because they needed to, it works really well to make this series so like stand out.
Yeah.
The editor Kevin Grutert, who later becomes a director on directing Saw X coming out soon. His style is just so like consistent, and it's so like rapid cuts, just crazy editing, weird slow-mo shots. Just like every trick in the book. It's back in
the era of like not actual slow motion, like slow,
just
24 frames per second. It just looks like absolute trash.
It's true, yeah. They're basically just like throwing every like editing trick at the wall, and it kind of works. Like just to its benefit, I think.
And you have some like decent transitions. Like there's one where they go through the floor and then it's the ceiling of that. But we'll get to this just in Saw 3, but Saw 3 has some incredible transitions.
Oh, Saw 4 has the best one.
Oh, Saw 4 was the best one.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know. I went in. That was one of the things I remembered about Saw 4.
And I'm like,
yeah.
And we'll talk about those when we get to that conversation in a little bit. But there's so much great stuff in this. One of the scenes that I just found chilling and very suspenseful when I first watched it, which I'll just tell the story quickly of me watching this for the first time. I was in high school. It was a get together. It was a marching band saxophone section get together.
Wow.
Oh, those are cool. We were having this get together and we wanted to, high schoolers, we want to stay up and watch a horror movie. So back in like the on-demand days, where you're going through the cable on demand to see what's there, because streaming services weren't huge yet. And we see that like Scream and Saw were on there. So we were voting between Scream and Saw. I voted for Scream. I was like, I would rather see Scream. I got outvoted. We watched Saw, and the rest is history. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Where has this been? I like went down huge rabbit holes. I listened to like every interview with James Wan and Lee Winnell. And then I went back and watched a bunch of the sequels. I still have never seen Saw 3D.
Is that the only one you haven't seen?
Yeah, that's the only one. I don't remember 5 very well at all, but I've seen it. And 6 I've seen, don't remember it. 7, I've only seen the ending, and that's what I'm missing. So.
Okay.
But we'll get there.
So my story is less interesting. It was just the summer before freshman year of college. I think it was on Amazon, actually, I think at the time. I saw it. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then the other ones were on there too. And I ended up just watching them because they were all like short. They're not very long. Yeah. So I ended up just binging all 7 of the ones out at the time in 2 days. I was working at Hy-Vee, which is a grocery, if you're not aware, grocery store in the Midwest at the time. And so I just would come home from work and I think I watched like 3 or 4 the first day and then the rest the next day. And I was just obsessed with it.
You know what? After finishing Saw 4, I'd watch 4 Saw movies in a weekend and I was like, man, I could watch Saw 5 right now.
It gets, especially later on, it gets to the point where it's essentially just episodes in a TV show.
It is.
So yeah, so you want to figure out what happens next, no matter how absurd.
But I was going to talk about one of the most memorable scenes. Sorry.
Sure, yeah, no, go ahead.
But I interjected a story, personal anecdote in the middle of my point. But one of my, the chilling, terrifying edge of my seat moments of the first movie for me is when Adam is being kidnapped and he has the camera and the flash.
Oh, yeah.
And the sound of that.
That is great.
It's such a clever scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that had been used before in another movie. But
yeah,
it works so well. And that was, being like my first horror movie, that scared the daylights out of me. And I do appreciate that this movie, it lets you know when the jump scares are coming. Like it's more about the mystery and the tension than the horror. And it's also, Saw gets such a bad rap for being quote unquote torture porn. The first one really is not, like, all the violence really happens off screen, or it's like after the fact that you see it. Like even when they cut off, when Carrie always cuts off his foot, it's like, it just shows like the initial cut.
Of it, yeah.
When the agent, what's his name, gets his head shot off with a shotgun, you see the aftermath. But
That's
you don't
true,
actually see
yeah.
it happening. Even with the barbed wire stuff, it's like, all that.
Yeah, it is interesting because this movie, even though it is the one that started it and it started a lot of things with the series, it is also one of the more different ones overall because a lot of the later ones start to follow a formula, whether you like it or not. But this one is just like more unique in how it presents itself and the setup and everything.
But it's supposed to be standalone.
Yeah, true. But it did also set up that every movie is just non-linear to the point of confusion at points. But this one, it's We didn't mention. Have we mentioned Danny Glover at all?
No, we have not yet.
Yeah, he's in it. He's the detective. He's pretty good.
Detective Tap.
Yeah. I think he's pretty good in the movie. He's probably giving the best performance overall.
Certainly.
Yeah, he seems like weirdly committed to the movie. Like, I mean, maybe it's just because the rest of it is so camp and everything, but he's taking it the most seriously out of everyone.
He put in his 2 days.
He did. Was he only in it 2 days?
2 days. He was done.
There we go. I mean, that's probably all they could afford him for.
Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense why they'd film Carrie Elways and say, yeah.
And Michael Emerson was only a couple days as well.
Okay.
I think.
So yeah, get all the actors that have any name recognition in and out. No, they don't have to pay them more than.
I don't know if Michael Emerson was really known yet. He was
No.
on Lost. Like he was on
Lost would have
Lost.
come out after.
And the guy who gets the agent who gets his head blown off. I can't remember his name.
That's
He's also
right.
on Lost.
He's also an old.
The movie?
Isn't he an old?
Maybe I don't remember.
I thought he was an old because I thought we talked about a lost guy and old. Maybe
A lost guy.
A lost guy. I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah, no, there's so much to like in here. One thing I did notice is like there is like a spiral in Jigsaw's workshop. I mean, it's also on Billy's face, but in the workshop there's like a big spiral on the wall. I'm
okay.
like, oh, it's alluding to
That's
the
what
ninth one.
They were foreshadowing that far in advance.
But I love all the just unnecessary conflict between Dr. Gordon and Adam. Just like,
Yeah.
we got to work together.
Although it doesn't quite get to the like an annoying point. Because every time I've watched this movie, I kind of forget how the like poison cigarette thing goes down, and I'm always kind of surprised that he doesn't just try to have Adam smoke it.
Just literally just tries to kill Adam.
Try to kill him. So it doesn't quite go as far in the conflict as it could. But yeah,
That'd be breaking his Hippocratic oath. Holden,
That's you
as
know
a
what?
doctor.
That's true. He can't break that.
How would you know? I'm a surgeon. Whatever he says. I'm a doctor. Selling our kidneys on eBay. He's like, please believe me. If you didn't have a kidney, you would know by now. You'd be in so much pain. How do you know? I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
It's great. High bar writing there.
Very good.
Let's see. What else do I got here? I just have all these random sporadic notes. We could talk about Jigsaw as a character and just him like being motivated by this, cancer diagnosis. Which apparently Lee Winnell had like a really bad, I think it was Lee Winnell, had a really bad migraine, and he'd like psyched himself out that it was like this brain tumor. And then he was like, well, what if I did have a brain, like how would that affect my life? Like how would my perception of life change? And I guess that was a big inspiration for Jigsaw as a character. He did not have a brain tumor, unfortunately. But I think that's interesting. What do you think of Jigsaw as a character? I mean, it obviously evolves over the course of the films. Like I think in the first one, he's like more like righteous. Like I don't know. Like I feel like he's like in the later movies, he's just more of an a-hole. Like he's just like clearly just this jerk who seems so self-assured, but is clearly a lunatic. Whereas in the first one, it's like maybe this guy, like I can at least see where he's coming from, even though obviously this is a horrible thing to do, people. But you can see why he's like justified it.
He's clearly always a hypocrite.
Yeah,
like that's evident from the start, and like his delusions just keep him from seeing that. I think in the first movie, I mean, ultimately he's kind of like he's a good antagonist, but he's kind of a non-character. Like he's very mysterious. You don't really know anything about him, which is fine because he is mysterious. But like you just know what he's trying to do based on what he's saying. There's not really a ton to grasp onto in this movie. And even with like Tobin Bell, because I mean, you don't even know it's Tobin Bell until the end of the movie.
Some people are so ungrateful to be alive.
Yeah, so you don't. I mean, aside from the vocals, you don't really get that performance or anything. So yeah, Jigsaw, I think this might be a hot take. I like Jigsaw more as the movies go on, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. And maybe not necessarily from like the logic of his motivation, but I think just I like him more as a character as it goes on. So I don't know.
I think he's just, I mean, he obviously tortures people to death or puts people in torturous situations.
Well, no, they kill
technically
themselves.
he's never. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. He did strap that reverse bear trap to that lady's head, and if she didn't get it off in a minute, her head would have exploded from the bear trap that he put on her. So I don't know about that.
One thing I want to talk about, and it's more of a problem in the later movies, but I'm just going to get it out there right now. And I don't know how you do it better because it doesn't make sense, but it bothers me how just like perfectly timed all these traps are.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something that's easy to see past. I don't mind. I don't even necessarily mind the games being timed, but it's like the people that wake up in a trap, and then that's
Like,
the moment that they need to wake up and everything. Like it's very stupid. You can look past it, but it doesn't make any sense in really any of these movies.
I think this first one does a better job because like he's got like a camera or whatever watching them, and when she wakes up, he like plays a video, and then when she like detaches, that's when the timer starts.
And that makes more sense.
That works. Whereas some like the sequels, it's like
How are you
especially
supposed to
Saw
know?
2, when like everybody wakes up and you have 2 hours to live or whatever. I'm like,
they're breathing in stuff that whole time.
Yeah.
It's very silly.
but we should talk about the ending, right? The ending of this movie, in my opinion, like the greatest twist ending ever. Sorry, Sixth Sense.
I don't know if I'd classify it as that, but it is iconic, really good. I really like it.
I shouldn't say greatest ever. It's my favorite.
Yeah, sure.
My favorite of all time. Yeah, no movie's gonna top this for me, I don't think, in terms of endings that are gonna just blow my mind.
I think I just knew the twist going into this one.
Oh, you
like
did?
the first.
Oh,
Well, yeah,
that's too bad.
because I saw it in high school, and I think it was just like by that point, that was like within a year or two of me starting to really get into movies. So I was just like watching a bunch of stuff about them, and I feel like at one point I just like found out about the twist.
That's too bad because that just blew my mind.
Really?
And it's one of those things that it's really satisfying to like think back, especially like the scene where Adam pretends to die, which is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so or whatever.
And
he
then
does.
the zapping is
Yeah.
but
so good.
it works. And there's a lot of plot holes in this first one, or not plot holes, like plot conveniences or things that don't quite make sense in terms of the rest of the story that are fixed in later movies. For example, like how did they not know Jigsaw was alive? Well, like later, it's like Saw 2 or 3,
I think it's 3.
where he takes the thing that's gonna
Relax
him.
muscles and stuff.
It also explains why the key in the bathtub gets flushed down right away because Amanda just throws it in there because she just kind of rigs the games.
Yeah.
You find out, I think, in Saw 3 as well. So it kind of clears up those things, which were definitely questions after watching the first movie. But the music, Hello Zepp.
Yep.
Just
Classic.
an iconic score.
And what's insane about this score, and obviously this was not the intention from the very start, but it's so versatile because I mean there's different arrangements of it later on in the series and whatever, but it works so well in this first movie, which is taken more seriously as like this big dramatic, reveal piece and everything. It's very nerve-wracking and everything when it plays, but it also, like in later movies, the song can also play into like the campy, like silly nature. I think of it. It's just like a really good piece of music that is versatile in more ways than I'm sure Charlie Klauser intended.
It's so good. It's just such a good, like, epic reveal song. And the build of everything. It fits the editing so well. It fits the vibe. I just like when Adam's searching for the key, and then he finds the tape. Like, that is just like the what the heck moment. He starts playing Hello Zepp. You blah, 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 whatever. And then seeing his body come up in the background. My mind melted.
Yeah.
My mind melted. And we give Lee Winnell some crap for his acting, but his face of just sheer terror, that last scene, I think is great. Jigsaw just rubbing it in. The key to that, those shackles is in the bathtub or whatever he says. That doesn't make any like. Why would I still don't understand that.
No, that doesn't make any sense because even if like
it wasn't rigged.
Yeah, even
Amanda.
if it wasn't rigged, why is the key just there?
What's he gonna like? Can he just leave?
Yeah, like he doesn't. Is Jigsaw assuming that even if the key wasn't rigged, that he just doesn't see the key? He's not looking around everywhere.
You know, the key with the big like glowy thing on the end.
Yeah.
Of it. Yeah. I if you have an idea about that, comment below. Because I still don't understand that one. Maybe do some more research there. But yeah, that ending is great. Game over.
Yeah.
I should say that at the end of the podcast. Honestly.
Game over.
Game over. Which they love to use in every Saw movie, essentially.
Yes. Good final line.
But yeah, otherwise you get the trap with the guy stepping on the glass and the candle. You know, maybe he's just better off blowing out the candle and just trying random numbers at some point, right? Because when it gets down there,
that is true. That's a good point. Like maybe carry it around for a bit if you're careful and like find a couple of the numbers and then just blow it out,
or just like leave it on this. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Also, I don't remember. I can't remember what Jigsaw says about like why he has to do that. But, you know, I think it's pretty interesting, the traps in this one. And the reverse bear trap, that styrofoam head just exploding.
Yeah.
And Billy, the puppet, just... you familiar with Gigglebees?
Mm-mm.
Okay, Gigglebee. There was this place in Sioux Falls with Wilbur, the wombat? Something like that. It was like Chuck E. Cheese. If you know what Chuck E. Cheese is, you're familiar with this. What's like the Simpsons equivalent of Chuck E. Cheese?
I can't.
Is that what it's something like that. In the Krusty Land or whatever. It's like this animatronic Chuck E. Cheese like thing.
Freddy's.
But it's this. I think it's a wombat, Wilbur, and he like comes on this bicycle and he would like bring your pizza to your table because there was like this track and it's just like. If I remember to, I'll put a picture here. But somebody like bought him, Wilbur Gigglebees. And if I remember to, I'm going to put this into the video version and maybe link it down below. But here's and it just would come out in the sea and they would pull that out. And definitely if I had seen this movie, that would just terrify me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's disturbing looking.
Yeah, that is scary. Yeah, you got to put that exact same picture
and then it would like turn and like talk at you.
No,
and then like they would have a microphone in like the back room. Like it's like the Wizard about like don't pay attention to the people behind the curtain. They would like talk to you. But yeah, I'll put this up and I'll put it in the notes to do Wilbur here. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that. Anything else to say, Holden, about the original Saw, one of the great movies of all time?
I don't think so. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's tremendous. The best movie you've ever seen. All right, that's Saw, the original one. Now we're going on to Saw 2. Saw Two Fingers.
Saw Two Fingers.